Elizabeth is led to the scaffold, and as the noose tightens around her neck, she utters an enigmatic phrase, "Here we are again," which we will hear several times again in the opera.
Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Several months earlier, Elizabeth is standing trial. The prosecuting attorney inquires about her former life before she met and later married John Cree. She addresses not the court, but actually us, her real audience. This aria is the most famous one in the opera. Elizabeth returns in memory to her youth when she was known as Lambeth Marsh Lizzie. She lived in poverty with her abusive mother, mending sails for the fishermen on the Thames. After her mother dies, Elizabeth uses the collection of the fishermen have raised to fulfill her dream of visiting a music hall. makes her way from Lambeth Marsh across the river to the theatre on Craven Street, just off the Strand. Elizabeth watches a variety show enthralled as the famous comedian Dan Leno performs a skit in drag playing Bluebeard's housekeeper, who is suspicious about what is going on downstairs in the house.
So whether you're a poor hamlet or high in high society, a drunkard or suffering from sobriety, whatever the roll of the dice, what gives life is fast.
Master Mr. Bluebeard owns the castle up on the hill. Such a lovely man he is. Keeps his place spotless, I do. Except for one little room in the cellar that he won't let me in. And that has me a-wondering. What's going on down below, Mr. B? Meaning below the chateau, Mr. B. According to me smeller, something's rotten in the cellar, and I truly like to know what's going on down below. Oh, Mr. B, what a pleasant surprise! Oh, Mr. B, whatever are you doing?
The doctor told me I need to take a walk every day on an empty stomach.
Elizabeth slips backstage after the performance and meets Dan as well as the others in the company. There is Uncle, the ventriloquist, Doris, the goddess of wire walking, little Victor Farrell, the magician, and Aveline Mortimer, the wide-eyed warbler. The performers, hearing of Elizabeth's plight, adopt her into their stage family.
A stranger no more ducks. We're your family now. The autumn is out to love your games. You've now got unlocked true. Artists, struggles, forever, dreams spinners, overchance, devout sinners, take muggers, dreams, screams, tear-tuggers, giant comics, dancers, to us, welcome to the variety show crew.
We jump 2 years forward for a real shocker. A man is entering into his diary his plan to commit a murder in Limehouse of a prostitute named Jane Quigg. He says his name is John Cree. He's the man whose murder Elizabeth has just been hanged for.
September 10th, 1880. I felt a murder coming on. As sure as my name is John Cree.
Panic has gripped London with the news of the murder, and Inspector Kildare of Scotland Yard is assigned to the case.
Jane Quig, prostitute, lighthouse, called Old Shorty by the sailors. Old Shorty.
Searching for clues, he learns that the victim occasionally swept the floors of the reading room in the British Museum. He finds out the names of the men who do work there and begins by questioning the noted novelist George Gissing. Gissing was a popular author of novels that dealt with the terrible social problems then prevalent in London. It is clear that Establishment Kildare thinks all socially conscious intellectuals like Gissing are worthless lefties. We return to the trial of Liz. She is questioned by the defense attorney and claims that John took his own life due to a morbid disposition.
That dear husband, was he suicidal?
Mr. Cree had a morbid disposition.
You had a great inheritance,
Modest inheritance.
£9,000 a year.
Part of which I give to preservation of the infant poor.
Back again now to the music hall. After working for several months backstage with the troupe of actors, Elizabeth was eager to make her stage debut. Coincidentally, little Victor, who was a consumer of vast quantities of gin, had just been killed when he fell down a flight of stairs. Then Aveline, who was as usual late because of her other not-to-be-mentioned job, didn't show up, and Dan was at a loss to put on the show. Liz proposes to Dan that she sub for Aveline, and he gives her the chance. At first, she is shy on stage, but she was really meant to be a performer and winds up a big hit. So Dan fires Aveline, and this is the beginning of much bad blood between the two women. As she leaves the theater after her performance, a man introduces himself. He is John Cree, trying to be a playwright by primarily he's the inheritor of a wealthy family fortune.
Lovely debut.
And you, dear sir, are...
A critic.
I forgive you.
For the era. And a playwright. The name is John Cree.
John, Mr. Cree.
Now we jump forward 2 years again for the second shocker. It is John Cree again, entering into his diary an account of a second murder. It is again in Limehouse, and it is of Solomon Weil, a Hebrew scholar who does his work in the reading room.
September 13, 1880. Attended the theater. The lobby was a bar.
It is with this murder that the press begins to refer to the murderer as the Limehouse Golem. Golems were amorphous demons in Jewish folk mythology, and the sordid nature of the murder would be a typical golem-like horror.
Solomon Wilde, scholar, Hebrew, Limehouse had no family and few friendships. He spent days in the reading room, and the British Museum reading room. That's all we know, not much to go on.
Kildare continues his interviews, and it is another Jewish intellectual that he interviews, the author of Das Kapital, Karl Marx. Marx is contemptuous of bourgeois Kildare, as Kildare is of him.
Mr. Marx. Yes, Inspector. You are known to frequent the reading room every day. I'm a thinker. Is that now a crime? You don't suspect I have red hands. Merely after clues. No stone unturned, feet then on the suffering of one, and ignores the suffering of many.
At the trial, the prosecution attorney interrogates Aveline Mortimer. She testifies that Elizabeth killed John by poisoning him with a rat poison cocktail. She told Aveline to give John a physic for his upset stomach. We don't yet know how Aveline wound up working for Liz and John, but we will later.
Not long after I saw it, I brought Mr. Cree a physic to help him sleep. Every evening, he grew weaker and weaker and weaker. Sooner
Elizabeth has risen to star status in the world of the musical, but is tired of ingenue roles. Dan agrees, and she performs a skit in male attire with Dan in his usual drag. The skit is called Here We Are Again. Those enigmatic words. The macabre nature of Dan's choice of subjects for skits is nothing extraordinary, as that was what the public wanted in those days. However, they do remind us of the horrible murders that are going to occur 2 years later.
My husband, the butcher, pervades meat on Cleveland Street. With him I'm quite taken. He's ever so kind, always brings home the bacon. The only problem's that when he comes back to our flat, he can't leave his work behind. So it's the finger or with the toe. Here we are again, another night in tea. Walk with an ankle, wrist, there you go. Here we are again.
Liz starts wearing men's clothes and walks around Limehouse where the prostitutes offer their services to her, thinking she's a man. She runs into Doris from the music hall, who then she sees as a threat. She might spill the beans about her. But Doris is even more a drunk than little Victor, and she dies quite soon after, and Liz no longer has to worry. Yet another brutal murder. This time, an entire family. John appears to be particularly proud of this one. More than 50 years earlier, a family named DeMar had been murdered. This murder so impressed Thomas de Quincey, the author of Confessions of an Opium Eater, that he wrote an essay on murder as one of the finer arts, which had become a classic. John Cree, who is obviously a total psychotic, believes his murder was an even greater work of art.
There I was, at the very scene of the Mars family massacre, immortalized in De Quincey's murder as one of the finer arts, now ripe for a reenactment featuring the Gerard family.
It is clear by now that this murderer is behaving like performers who have no other motive for what they do. Kildare finds out that the father of the murdered family had once been Dan Leno's dresser and calls Leno in for questioning. This is the first connection between the murders and the music hall. Kildare is so impressed with Dan Leno, because he's so famous, that he asks him for his autograph.
Most theatricals drink too much to remember grudges.
This Limehouse golem, if you will, done, appears on the front page tomorrow. Never get my likeness quite right.
After Dan's interview, he is quite upset, and he quietly bemoans a world in which such evils exist. The great clown seems to be the only sincere character in the story.
Oh, woeful world. Oh, woeful world, where murder and madness reign.
Meanwhile, the panic in London builds, and Kildare feels more pressure to find the murderer.
See the headline already. Out in the passage,
Well, it looks like Liz married a psychotic murderer. She was at first reluctant, but then accepts his proposal.
I can promise you a life without worry, a life without care. I can promise you freedom from need, freedom from want. The world is a perilous place, with horrors beyond imagining.
Everyone is happy for Liz, except Uncle, We find out that Uncle, who has been taking advantage of her, now threatens to reveal her lesbian activities. And once more, Liz is saved when the booze does him in. Marrying John, Liz has come up in the world and lives in her husband's fine house in a fine neighborhood. Since Liz got her fired from the troupe, Aveline has been quite down and out, and Liz hires her as a maid, humiliating her with her new higher social position. Meanwhile, John is frustrated because Elizabeth refuses to consummate their marriage. Elizabeth gets the idea of having Aveline as a surrogate for her with John. Aveline has been down and out so long that she realizes she has no choice but to agree. And John goes along with this, but he also wonders why Liz has so many men's clothing in her closet. He spends his time in the reading room working on his play, which is called Misery Junction. In the reading room, each of the men are having problems, and they sing a moving quintet. Elizabeth tells Aveline that John suffers from bad dreams and orders her to give him a physic that she prepares herself every night. A physic was what people took for an upset stomach. This will be, of course, the source of Aveline's damning testimony, that the physic contained the rat poisoning.
He cannot sleep. Instead of seducing him, you do well to earn your keep by bringing him this gentle physic.
It is a month later. Everyone but John is in the reading room. Marx, Gissing, Leno, they're there continuing to read their books, when Elizabeth comes in, making her first appearance there. She's there to return 3 of her husband's books to the librarian. These books she publicly displays as books her husband checked out. It incriminates him as the limestone golem because 2 of them are about surgery and one is the De Quincey essay on murder as an art form.
Thank you for returning these, Mrs. Cree. Thomas De Quincey, murder as one of the finer arts. Pankhurst's operative surgery, and a heavy one, Johnson's Guide to Surgical Instruments.
When Elizabeth leaves, the men resume their lamentation. Now Kildare is very frustrated because the Limehouse Golem's murders have suddenly stopped without his finding out who did them. And the public now turns its fickle attention to the trial of Elizabeth Cree. his dreams of glory have been subverted. The court reaches a verdict. The opera has come full circle.
You are hereby sentenced to death. Sentenced for the poisoning of your husband. To death. John Cree. Poisoning. The 9th day of April in the year of our Lord 1881. You will be hanged by the neck until the turn at Camberwell prison. And thereafter buried within its precincts. May the Lord have mercy on your soul.
It is the night before her execution, and a priest visits Elizabeth to hear her confession. When she is tongue-tied, she remarks that she has forgotten her lines for the first time. We once more realize that to her, her life has been in fact a great and grand performance.
Come to hear your confession.
Prompt me, Father, for the first time in my life, I have forgotten my life.
But wait, there is an epilogue. Several months have passed. It is opening night of a new play. It is John Cree's play, Misery Junction, but the theater has taken it and rewritten it to cash in on the notoriety of Elizabeth and John's story. The play has been retitled The Murder of John Cree. Everyone who's who is there, including the recently deceased Crees. Liz complains they at least could have waited until her body was cold. And John has to watch a play about his own murder that he wrote. Ironically, Aveline, whose testimony was critical to Liz's conviction, is playing the part of Elizabeth. It begins like the opera does, with Liz on the scaffold. But things don't go as planned. You will have to see the opera to know what happened. Of course, Dan Leno is there, and at the very end addresses the audience with his iconic line, "Looks like it has all come full circle."
Here we are again. Here we are again. All opening night.
Imagine,
Logical,
absurd, all yet learned. Every word, all learned. In the end, all learned. In the end.
Enjoy this remarkable opera.